Hey, it's Corey with First Line. Today I'm going to show you how to mix Dahlgren Decon. First things first, we want to talk about safety. If you're mixing large quantities of Dahlgren Decon, your basic safety equipment is just going to be a pair of nitrile gloves, some sort of eye protection, and a dust mask. It doesn't have to be a P100 like this one. Any sort of dust mask will do. If you're doing large quantities, you're doing it outside where the wind's blowing, we always recommend if you have it available, just put on a full face mask. The instructions to mix Dahlgren Decon are on the back of every package, every part, the part A, the B1, B2. So if you forget how to do it, it's going to be right here on each package. They're all the same. Also on our app, the Decon Field Guide, we also have a how to mix button. If you just hit that how to mix button, it'll actually show you the same instructions how to mix Dahlgren. We're inside today, there's no wind blowing, and I'm trying to talk to you guys, so I'm not going to wear all of this protective equipment, which is fine if you're doing small quantities inside. So the first step, take your beaker and stir rod. This comes with every kit. The beakers are sized to the different size configurations. Today we're going to do a 22-ounce kit. So the first step is to take your part A, simply unscrew the cap. There'll be a heat seal on top of it. You can either pop it with your thumb or you can take your stir rod. And all you need to do is puncture that cap. You don't need to actually remove it. It's not going to cause any problems. Take the part A, pour the entire bag right into your beaker. And you can discard these bags when you're done. The next step is to take your B1. On one corner of the B1 bag, there's going to be a tear notch. Simply tear that notch all the way apart. And you're going to dump it all the way in and start stirring. The B1 dissolves pretty easily, but it is important to make sure that it's completely dissolved. You don't need to stir really, really hard. You just got to keep the water moving. It'll take about 30 seconds to a minute to get all this dissolved. One thing to keep in mind is the warmer your part A is and the warmer it is outside, the faster you're going to be able to get this dissolved. But if it's very, very cold outside, it might take a little longer. If you keep the part A at a higher temperature, if you can keep it in the cab of a vehicle or keep it inside until you use it, it is going to make it mix faster. All right, so we're almost done. And here what I'm doing is I can just kind of scrape along the bottom and make sure that I don't have any big flakes or chunks of that part B1 there. I'm going to stir until I don't see any big flakes and that there's nothing stuck to the bottom of the beaker. So that looks good. And the final step on this is I'm going to take the part B2. This is our active ingredient. Now it's very important that you get that B1 dissolved all of the way completely until you put this B2 in. So you get that full 5% peracetic acid to decontaminate whatever your thread is. And then the best way to do this is pour, don't dump it all the way in at once. Kind of slowly pour while stirring. You'll see this kind of what looks like steam come up. That's actually just a vapor of the PES solid. Try not to breathe that directly in. It'll make you sneeze. And we're going to get all the PS solid, all of the B2 out of this bag. All right, so now I've got it all out and I'm just going to keep on stirring. And this is the same as stirring the B1 in. I don't need to really agitate it. I don't need to shake it. I don't need to stir really hard. I don't need to put any sort of drill bit in here to stir this. I just need to keep it moving and it'll dissolve on its own. So while I'm doing this, I do the same thing as I did with the B1. I kind of scrape along the bottom and that lets me see how much I still have to get dissolved. You can kind of, if you look real close, you can see the little chunks of undissolved solid that are still here. And I just keep stirring until I get almost all of those dissolved. Now depending on temperature, depending on a lot of other factors, you may not get every last little bit dissolved. That's not a big deal. Just as long as you don't have any really big chunks that are going to clog your spray or whatever you pour it into. If you spill a little bit of B1 or B2 in this process, don't worry about it. It's going to, they have plenty of extra. So even if you spill a little bit, it's really 10% either way, it'll still mix fine, it'll still be effective. All right, and then if you look closely, one of our instructional steps says wait for the foaming reaction to settle. We're not talking about this foam that sits up top here like the foam on the head of a beer. We're talking about the foam that's actually in the body of a liquid. If you're familiar with pouring a Guinness beer, when you pour it, you see that foaming reaction. The entire beer looks milky, but then it settles out. That's exactly what we're looking to happen here. And you can actually start to see it really quickly. It starts from the bottom and then comes up. You'll always have a certain layer of foam on top. That's not a big deal. You can just pour it off or just ignore it. So I'm going to do one last stir and kind of scrape, make sure there's no big chunks in here. I don't see anything big. I don't see anything that's going to clog my sprayer. So now I'm ready to pour it into my sprayer and it's ready to use.